The Score is brought to you by BearingDrift.com, America's conservative voice. Visit us at BearingDrift.com. Now back to the one who's keeping score, your host, Scott Lee.
Don't you get tired of the same old hat, the same old politician, the same guy who says the same thing, and then he gets up there and acts differently? Hi, Scott Lee on The Score once again. Thanks for coming back and joining with us again. By the way, check us out at BearingDrift.com, would you? And drop me an email there. At the top it says The Score. There are a lot of candidates, as you heard us discussing a few minutes ago, for the lieutenant governor race here in the Commonwealth among the GOP ticket. Some are going to stick out for you. Some are going to be like, holy cow, that guy's amazing. I ran across a guy that I want you to consider greatly. And he's got a new agenda. It's called the Engage and Reform Agenda. Top 5 items are demand a taxpayer Bill of Rights, which I love, restore individual and religious liberty by refusing to participate in Obamacare, end unfunded state mandates to local governments, permanently defund Planned Parenthood, end corporate subsidies in Virginia. Wait a minute. Corporate welfare. There's a politician speaking this way? Who is it? I want to know. Well, his name's E.W. Jackson. He joins me right now on the phone. E.W. Jackson, thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me, Scott. It's a pleasure.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, it's a breath of fresh air to have somebody who actually has an agenda like this, that's bold, but also somebody who is not afraid to say exactly what they think and are passionate about conservative ideals. I don't know if that's your Marine Corps upbringing, that the fact that you are a small business, or were a small business owner, or been married to a woman for over 40 years, the same woman that is. I don't know how you came to be such a passionate, articulate speaker about things that you believe, but it's contagious.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott. You know, in your opening, it reminded me of the I was in Lancaster County 2 or 3 days ago. Somebody came up to me after I spoke and said, you know, you're the only candidate in this race who, when I listen to you, I don't feel like I'm listening to a politician. And I say, you know, that's the greatest compliment you can pay me, because I'm not one. Right. I'm a patriot. I love my country. I love the Commonwealth of Virginia. Your listeners may or may not know my family originally hails from Virginia. My great-grandfather and great-grandmother were slaves and then sharecroppers in Orange County, Virginia. So I go back in Virginia all the way back to just around the time that, at least as far as we can trace, back to the time when George Washington died. So
wow.
These matter, they matter deeply to me, and freedom is an important part of my agenda, and I think we've got to inspire, frankly, Scott, and unify people around an agenda that says, look, we're all Americans, and we've got to come back to these foundational principles if we expect our country to be the greatest nation in the world in the 21st century as it's been in the last 2 centuries.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to have you on, because I think people should hear from you. I think people ought to seriously consider your candidacy. I think they ought to look about what your agenda is about. And let's talk about one of the items on your agenda. It's called the Engage and Reform Agenda. They can actually find that at BearingDrift.com. We wrote about it and did some things that they can click on and review. But the first one is a taxpayer Bill of Rights. Now, I'm a taxpayer, and I like the idea of having a Bill of Rights. But essentially, this idea came from the fact that when the government of the Commonwealth of Virginia had a massive surplus, they didn't give it back to the taxpayers. They spent it. You think it ought to go back to the taxpayers?
It ought to absolutely go back to the taxpayers. You know, and here again, it comes back to the liberty agenda, to these foundational principles. Our country was founded on the idea of limited government, the thought that the bigger government becomes, the more it wants to take from people. The power to tax, I really believe, is the power to destroy and to control.
Yep.
And so we want to limit government's ability to tax. We want to make the government have to come back to the people before it can expand government beyond the growth of the economy itself. And you're right, when government has a surplus, give the money back to the taxpayer instead of finding something else for government to do, or at least ask taxpayers permission to use that money rather than just deciding, oh, we got a windfall here, let's find something else to spend it on.
Now there was a politician not so long ago that said once a surplus becomes a surplus and it's in the government's pocket, it's no longer the taxpayers and they can spend it as they want. It's odd to hear someone running for office that thinks differently.
Well, you know, you called me crazy, Scott, but I have to believe that The government doesn't have any money.
Right.
It hasn't worked for any money. All it does is take money from the taxpayers. And we understand that government has to do certain things, and we don't have a problem with it taking money to do those things that are specifically required. But it's not ultimately the government's money. It's the taxpayers' money, and we allow them to be stewards of it. And there's nothing that galls me more than to hear this notion that whenever there's a tax cut or whenever there's a return, we're being done a favor. Gee, we're going to let you have something. No, it's ours in the first place. So what a principle to have to come back to and have to argue about. It ought to be fundamental to who we are as Americans.
I think it'd be refreshing to have someone like you as president of the Senate here in the Commonwealth. That'd be kind of fun. All right, let's go on to another one here real quick. Obviously, to refuse to participate in the state exchanges for Obamacare. So you wouldn't set up a Virginia state exchange?
Absolutely not. I think Obamacare is a direct assault on the 9th and 10th, and frankly, not only the 9th and 10th Amendments, but an assault on the First Amendment as well, as you know, on religious liberty. The thing is a constitutional abomination, frankly, and I think that the state has got to resist it. And as Lieutenant Governor, I don't want to pretend. I tell people this all the time. Sometimes I think candidates and people who are politicians will pretend like they've got all the power in the world to do all this stuff. Well, we know that the power of the lieutenant governor is limited. He has certain, or she has certain constitutional responsibilities, breaking a tie vote, presiding over the Senate, and, of course, taking over if anything, God forbid, should happen to the governor. But a lieutenant governor who really is a grassroots person, who really is out there talking to people and educating people and informing people and organizing people, can be a powerful force to assist a governor like Ken Cuccinelli, for example, in trying to move the Commonwealth in the direction of upholding constitutional principle. As a state, as a sovereign state, we have in fact, I was not too long ago rereading James Madison on the balance between state and federal authority, and James Madison made clear that the whole point of sovereign states and a federal system was so that the states would be a check on federal power.
Right.
And states would have a right to resist it. And now this, somehow this is a new notion. No, it's built into our constitutional system.
Talking with E.W. Jackson, candidacy for lieutenant governor with the GOP. All right, let me ask you about why it's so difficult to defund Planned Parenthood. Why is that such a hard one? I mean, even if those who are pro-choice and pro-life, couldn't we all agree that the taxpayers shouldn't fund it?
Well, in my view, it's not hard. I think it just requires some courage. Planned Parenthood is an abortion mill, and we just need to stop pretending something different. Ronald Reagan used to say, don't be afraid to see what you see. Now, we know what we see, and we try to pretend it's something else for the purpose of not creating controversy. Well, look, when our founding fathers created this nation, that was a controversial act, putting their very lives on the line.
Yep.
And I think we can certainly stand up for the lives of unborn children and at least say, look, abortion is legal in our country. We'll continue to fight that fight and try to persuade people that it's wrong, that we shouldn't be doing it. However, in the meantime, you shouldn't ask taxpayers to fund it who have a fundamental objection to it.
Right.
So yeah, I'll certainly be a force fighting for that. Of course, here again, we know that the lieutenant governor is not the governor, and so I don't want to pretend that I'm the one who's going to be.
I think people understand that and get the point. But I mean, what matters is your view. What matters is your philosophy, and that's what you're laying before us.
Right.
In corporate welfare, big one. You might have some people fight against you in that in the General Assembly.
Well, look, I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the board of directors of the Chamber here in Chesapeake, and I believe in the importance of business. However, we need small business hires and employs most people in this country, and it's true for the Commonwealth of Virginia as well.
Yep.
And if we don't start paying attention to the small business owners who are here and trying to build their businesses from the ground up, and all we do is focus on trying to get big corporate entities to come in who in the end really, based on the breaks that we give them, really don't contribute that much in the way of jobs or to the tax base, we're going to really kill the goose that lays the golden egg. So in my view, we need to stop focusing so much on trying to bring in business from outside. Nothing wrong with that, mind you. I mean, we want to be competitive, but we need to give more attention to the businesses that are already here. And I've talked to a lot of them across the Commonwealth, Scott, and they're frustrated. They feel like they're the stepchildren in this relationship.
Yeah, I'm sure they feel like they're paying to have the big corporate guy here. Well, essentially, it builds a builds a two-tiered system, and it's just not right. In fact, we ought to lower taxes for everyone and let that be the draw instead of individual different deductions here and there.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. I hope people got a good taste of who you are, and if they want to know more about you, how do they do that?
They can go to our website. It's jacksonforlg.com. That's jacksonforlg.com, and they'll sign up as a delegate, contribute to our campaign. Look, we're going to take back our country, and it's going to start right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia where the whole thing started in the first place.
I love it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Scott. God bless you.
You too, sir. That's E.W. Jackson, a former Marine, small business owner, Harvard Law degree. What a package. And by the way, he's not a politician. You want to hear this interview again? You'll find it at BearingDrift.com.